Salutations everybody, it is Matty here today, and we are reviewing the reviews of Fallout 76 Wastelanders. Kind of. You see, a couple of websites were allowed to post their impressions of Fallout 76 Wastelanders. The highest hour count I have noted here is 30 hours, but it gives us a good idea of what to expect going into this very big and important expansion for Bethesda. And I figured since a lot of us are on the edge of our seats, either in anticipation and excitement, which a lot of us are, myself included, because what I played at PAX I really enjoyed, or on the other end of the spectrum, you're anticipating disaster, you may be curious what people have to say about Wastelanders outside of myself and a couple of other content creators. So we're going to be going through all of that. Quick shout out to Juicehead, he sent me all of these impressions here, so I thought it would line up to make a pretty good video. Let's start with IGN because I think they have the most interesting and noteworthy angle, and also it won't be messed up a bit by Google Translate. So when starting Wastelanders, there are two ways to go about it, as we all know. Begin fresh from the vault or travel back to Vault 76 with your high level character. I wholeheartedly recommend using your high level character for multiple reasons. For starters, there are a ton of charisma, strength, and intelligence dialogue options right from the get-go, all of which will be closed off to you in the earlier levels. The second is a very early, very abrupt progression gate tied to your character level, but that's something I'll get into a bit. And that second part is very important. But what I want to talk about here right now is that Bethesda has decided inherently in its design to favor those who have already played 76, and I don't think this is going to pan out well for them in that regard, because a lot of people are looking at Wastelanders as, yes, this is the Fallout we wanted in the first place, and if you're going to do an online Fallout game, this is the style of an online Fallout game we wanted. So to know that they're favoring people who've been playing and not people coming in for the first time isn't that great, but we'll get into exactly why that's the case, and it's pretty important, something I've noted in my own personal review, and it probably will affect most who play. Now, because Fallout 76 is still an active online experience with other players, I was curious how Bethesda would tackle interactive conversations and decisions. While the solution seems fairly simple, it's elegant in its execution. Essentially, anything meaningful happens in instanced versions of the world, as I've said in my impressions, so when you enter a shop or a cave, you and your party are the only ones there. This allows for scenes to play out as intended with a full dynamic camera movement to boot, so I thought this was just noteworthy. It's a subtle little thing that I personally didn't even pick up on or think about, but yeah, in Fallout 4 you should be familiar with this. When people are talking, the camera just dynamically shifts around, so you're not staring at one person constantly talking for a while, say in a game like Vampire where the conversations are really good but the camera's just constantly fixed. This avoids that because of the instance areas, so I think this will be good to continue to engage the player. But let's scroll down a little bit and talk about the more important stuff, which is the questing, the decisions, and why IGN wasn't in favor of what Bethesda did, which is supporting more of the players who have been engaged for a longer time. What starts as a linear quest eventually splits into separate factions as you complete tasks and daily missions for the two factions, all while earning reputation with them as well. Everyone you meet fits into the world. I'm particularly drawn to the friendly settlers who are just trying to keep their people safe while building a new home for themselves in a desolate wasteland, which I can understand. It sounds more in line of what 76 is. It's very Fallout. Although, I suppose the raiders storming in and stealing things by force is also very fitting. Now here's the kicker. The big bummer you'll find with Wastelanders is honestly the fact that vanilla Fallout 76 still exists at all. Meeting NPCs in the wild only for them to nudge you to join the original 76 storyline is a bit of a drag. I found it very strange that there are basically two main storylines now, Wastelanders and vanilla. I was happy ignoring Fallout 76's original chasing ghosts storyline. That's actually a perfect way to describe it, by the way. That's genius. In favor of the new Wastelanders one. That was until Wastelanders quest came to a screeching halt just as it was getting exciting and required me to rank up to level 20. This is where having a high level character to avoid the abrupt stop comes in handy. So when I was talking to some folks at Bethesda at PAX, they told me that it would be better if you came back as a high level character. And I thought it was just because you'd have more options in speech, But to know that there is this bit of a progression gate and that you do have to hop into menial tasks, as they say here, after fun dialogue moments with interesting NPCs and using a trash-talking severed robot head to fight off Scorched, I was suddenly dumped back into the not-so-great Fallout 76 and told I needed to stay there for 11 more levels. It was a huge bummer. And yeah, man, that's just not good. That is not good if you are a new player coming in. I don't want to act like it's the end of the world that you have to play some vanilla Fallout 76. I think it's just that original content probably, as we'll see with all of these impressions by the end of this video, pale in comparison to what Wastelanders brings, which is the Fallout experience we're looking for. And so while on paper it makes sense to mix these two together, and we'll see some story reasoning as to why, which is spoiler free, I still think that Bethesda may not have helped themselves out by forcing the original Fallout 76 on so many people, because it doesn't fix that content. It just interloops what is seemingly good content into the not so good content. Now, it does seem like that progression gate is intentional to give people a taste of original 76 to see if Bethesda can engage them there. What has changed with original 76 though? For example, clearing the Scorched from the Morgantown airport now ends with you meeting a man who lives there now, claiming he came here looking for his brother and has decided to live where his brother presumably died. A little dark. It adds a bit of flair, but doesn't drastically alter what was originally there. So it's kind of like flavor. So that's how some of the original questing changes. Luckily, I am happy to report that once I did get to level 20, Wastelanders took the reins once more and I was thrust back into the post-apocalypse I much prefer to be in. And while I wasn't allowed to play much beyond the opening of the Raiders and Settlers storylines, I'm told from Bethesda that reaching level 20 does in fact unlock the full breadth of Wastelanders content. So why is this a problem? It's because now there's going to be conflicts of opinion. You're going to have people like me who may come in. I'm not making a new character, screw that. I didn't want to in the first place. I just wanted to play Wastelanders. I dropped Fallout 76 until this expansion finally drops. So that's what I care about, and I don't want any other content but that. So you'll have my opinion. Maybe it ends up being a positive one or a middle of the road one, and maybe you'll have someone who's starting off brand new who hates what they've done because you have to play the original content. It's almost a slow roll compared to my experience. And when you get those two different experiences, I don't know, it may not work out well in the reception department. This is the last bit I wanted to talk about from IGN's impressions. They talk about how it's definitely a step in the right direction, but here's a good example. For example, while looking for a gang hideout, I met a father who claimed he didn't know anything about it. After poking around and speaking to his daughter, I was informed that there was an audio log hidden in the cabin. I found it and discovered the man killed his wife and made a deal with the gang to keep himself and his daughter safe. To my surprise, I was able to confront him about it and he fessed up to his crimes. But when I talked to him again, he resorted back to his normal state of not knowing anything about the gang hideout. Wastelanders definitely reminds you that this is a shared world experience and you, as one lowly player, are not at the center of this world's attention as you were in previous Fallouts. And this was when I decided to make the video. I was like, that's a stinger, because it sounds like right here, to my surprise, I was able to confront him and he fessed up about it. I was like, oh man, that's awesome. Like, I discovered something in the environment, I brought it back, the world reacted to it. But then you talk to him again and there's not like a line saying, oh, I'm sorry for what I did, or I'm so regretful. It's just him reverting to his normal state, which, as this article suggests, is probably due to the online nature. That's where it's like, man, that's such a bummer, because they're like right there. They're knocking on the door, it sounds like, but that's the type of thing that will hurt the experience for us Fallout players who just live and die off immersion. And essentially the article wraps up saying that they are looking forward to playing this slightly new but very improved Fallout 76. So it is an improvement from what they have played. They're looking forward to getting back into that storyline. So it seems like Wastelanders content, pretty good. Let's see what Mine MMO has to say. This person played 15 hours of Wastelanders, and they seemed like they have played a lot of 76 before this, so do keep in mind that these two articles here are coming from Fallout 76 players who seemingly enjoyed parts of the game before Wastelanders, which I think is valuable information, because you don't have someone like me who couldn't stand the game and may not still be able to stand the game after Wastelanders. Anyway, the solutions that Wastelanders brings, they're talking about bugs here because they set up the PTS. They said, in my 15 hours, I only stumbled across 3 smaller bugs that were fixed by quickly reloading the world. The beta shortly before the release had much bigger problems and more crashes. The effects of your decision are there too, but the end result remains the same with the quests, at least as far as I've played. You can only block your way, more or less, and miss out on additional content or rewards if you make the wrong decision. Now, this brings me back to sort of what I talked about in my 2020 review of Fallout 3, where it's like there's not that moral gray where you're making a decision where no one wins and maybe you're just getting some items out of it. Here it's like good decision, bad decision, and sometimes you can just say I'm playing as an evil person, but in a lot of games where you can be evil, it's not good to, because you don't get powerful, you get awful rewards, and it's like, why would I even bother? And so you're just inherently forced into playing the role the game was built for. I'm hoping that with Fallout 76 introducing a raider faction where you are going to naturally side with evil people, that they would reward you for being evil, but it sounds like here that it's more along the lines of not quest endings being different, which is a shame because I look at Elder Scrolls Online and there are quests that end differently with unique dialogue, and that's all people are really asking for. And obviously more is better, but still a little disappointing. Now, we're not going to get into his whole thoughts on the story, but just this first sentence here, as already written, I started Wastelanders with a new character, and I would advise every player to do that. See what I'm talking about? I said this on the IGN article. You're going to get conflicting opinions. This is why I say know your creators, know your source. This person, I'm telling you, based off what I had read, liked Fallout 76 beforehand. So that means they, in turn, did like some of the vanilla content, unlike the IGN writer, which makes sense. And I think a lot of us fall more in the boat with the IGN writer. But see, there are going to be people who are going to tell you, start a new character, try from the beginning. And do you have to avoid it completely? No, I think it's still worth being open to. But if you already have a character in game, I don't see why there is a benefit to just starting off brand new. Otherwise, the story itself continues in a similar way as before. The Overseer, who gave you quests via holotapes before, sends you across the Appalachia again, but this time you should help people settle there. So I scrolled down a little bit. He talks about choices you can make, and he says that you can intimidate, you can lie, you can bring happiness, and all that. But there is one point that I think is interesting, and it seems like NPCs aren't essential in this world, but there's a way around it. Incidentally, or I think that's supposed to say accidentally, errors can be partially compensated for. I accidentally killed an important person with a grenade far too early and was then glared at by everyone around me. I very much regretted it, especially since it was an accident, but since certain quests and areas are saved less frequently, a return to the main menu can undo such decisions if it has not yet continued. So that is interesting. I don't know exactly how that plays off with some NPCs. That's something I'm absolutely going to test when I make my review for Wastelanders, but it's interesting to see that some can be killed and then you load out, log back in. Not sure how that will work as well. Will that affect your reputation permanently? What saves, what doesn't save? He talks about how NPCs react to how he behaves, saying that even what you're wearing will be commented on. So when I stumbled into the Wayward Diner for the first time with my fresh character to have a bite to eat with Duchess and Mort, people approached me about my vault jumper before the diner, only in passing without any real conversation. With my main and power armor and Gatling, comments are like, hey, you like the big buzz, huh? And I'm assuming this section here is just a complete mess up on Google Translate, but it seems like comments are different based off what you're wearing. They even inform me about the condition of my armor. So that's the type of details that people like in Fallout. They're the little things that build the universe and make it feel like your character is quite important, and that's what a lot of folks are looking for. But most importantly is, of course, that choice that you can make that can change the universe in some way, shape, or form. Now, I figured it's deep enough in the video to mention this. This next part is going to focus on a companion a bit, and I don't think it's super spoilery, but there are details about the companion and who they are that maybe people will want to avoid. So if you don't want that spoiled, Feel free to click ahead or click off, I understand, but let's get into it. Companions are the ideal side quest. A feature that I particularly liked was the companions. I spent over 3 hours on the first companion quest for a crashed astronaut just to make her my companion at all, which I like. It's not just a quick here and there. That's really good to hear. Her quest line begins with an emergency signal that leads me to her. She explains that she crashed and needs help and wonders what actually happened because she didn't notice the whole war. That right there, that companion sounds awesome. She's been trapped in space and deep sleep since Fallout's nuclear war until it crashed. Now it's up to me to help her cope with the new world. After a few quests, I can then offer her to live with me. Companions have a special item that can be set up in camps, and they will then stay there and continue to provide you with quests. I didn't get very far yet, but with every quest step, she told me more about herself. This sounds like a good companion. Like, conceptually, it sounds like a good companion. An astronaut who had no idea the war happened and they had a crash landing and now you're introducing them to everything. That sounds like a really, really good companion. Genuine excitement for that. Just saying, man. Sounds really cool. To wrap up the Mine MMO impressions, is this game worth getting into? They say the way that everything is inserted into the world is very different. It just fits. Instead of accidentally finding holotapes of some dead people without faces, there are now clients, I'm imagining I'm supposed to say people, with emotions and personality, a feeling that makes me want to play more. So general positive impressions. Does seem like this person had liked 76 beforehand to some extent, not loved it, just enjoyed it. And so I think out of everything here, the biggest takeaway was the companions. Now, I want to show GameStar, but one time back in 2014, I just briefly used a clip from their interview and they instantly hit me with a copyright claim. So I'm just going to avoid that. They actually have their article locked off unless you pay to be a member of their site. Generally, this person had 30 hours in the game, and the only thing I could see in their article was that bugs and issues with the servers have persisted throughout their experience, but it is what they say the closest step to a real co-op Fallout game. So it sounds like general impressions across the board. I am assuming a little bit with GameStar, but like I said, I'm not paying for their article. Sorry, I'm not doing that. But from the first two we read, these in-depth impressions, it does look like Fallout 76 Wastelanders is an improvement in a number of ways, but some of that intertwining of bugs, vanilla content, and some of the choices not mattering as deeply as we'd hoped for can hold it back. But anyways, I hope that this video helped you gauge a little bit where Fallout 76 stands in the terms of impressions. I know it was a bit of a longer video, but I really wanted to dissect and discuss. So now I pass it off to you. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments down below. Other than that, follow me on Twitter, follow me on Instagram. Big thank you to all the patrons who continue to support this content flow. I really appreciate each and every single one of you, and we'll talk soon, all right? Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.